Having a great idea is always amazing, but without actually putting action into it, nothing's going to happen. I think people have a real misguided understanding of what branding is.
And what is the future of social media, you think?
Probably microchips in our brains at some stage. And, we've had meetings with the Facebook team and what they're really driving for is the future of technology immersed into your life 24/7. The power of dance is way more powerful than social media. Way more powerful.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Maneuver. Our mission on this show is to facilitate meaningful conversations and spread useful information to help dancers maneuver through life and their career. Firstly, we would like to thank the City of Melbourne Council for bringing to life these first few episodes, a 5-part series where we delve into topics in mindset, health, business, and creativity. So if you think these episodes will benefit you, consider subscribing. I'm so excited for today's chat because we're talking about business, entrepreneurship, and marketing. And if you know me, these are some of my most favorite topics in the world. So, to all you dancerpreneurs out there, here we go. Our guest for today is entrepreneur, author, speaker, podcaster, and marketing expert. The first time I personally met him is back in Auckland, New Zealand, when he was the sales and account manager of the country's biggest hip-hop and R&B station, My FM. With a desire to do big things, he and his wife, Amber, in true entrepreneurial style, moved to Melbourne with nothing more than some pocket change, a suitcase, and a dream. They both fell in love with the city and from the ground built their marketing company, King Creative, where they've produced breakthrough campaigns for brands like Beats by Dre, Asus Computers, Skechers, Lenovo, Steve Aoki, and Culture Kings. King Creative has built campaigns in collaboration with artists, influencers, and dance crews, as he did with the Meyer and Soul Republic campaign. He is the author of the book 5 Steps to Creative Marketing and the co-host of the Docklands #1 Business Podcast, where he shares a wealth of knowledge on tricks and hacks in marketing and business. A couple of additional cool things he's done in the past includes being the vice president of the Docklands Chamber of Commerce and also saving a man from drowning in the Yarra River, where he actually got a bravery award from the governor of Victoria. A client described his ideas as crazy but powerful and is considered to be one of the best marketing experts you can find. Let us welcome someone who's not just full of knowledge, but someone who's full of swag. I'm so excited to bring you Mr. Kebrasca King.
Oh, that is going to be the best introduction of my life, my friend. Thank you so much for having me, brother. It's, I didn't know that we'd done so much stuff. It's pretty crazy.
But let me just first of all say that you've saved a man from drowning.
I have. I shouldn't laugh because yes, I have. It was an interesting day. We were actually doing a campaign for Asus at the time, a gaming show here in Melbourne, which happens once a year called PAX. So my wife and I were actually on our way to go and work the full day, the campaign happening at this event. And we saw this guy flying this drone by the river, South Yarra River, just down here in Docklands, which was awesome. It looked like, he's flying it over the river, doing all those beautiful shots. And then all of a sudden, it starts running out of battery. It starts slowly going down and down and down. And we just decided to watch because we thought it's going to be pretty funny because it's literally going to go in the water. And it did. Like it went fully into the water. It started to go underneath. And then this guy who was flying it literally jumped in, fully clothed, young guy. And like he had a puffer jacket on, he had jeans on. All he did was take his glasses off, put the drone control down, and literally just jumped in the water. And the funny part about that is he actually couldn't swim. He tried to doggy paddle with all this clothing on, and he's like doggy paddling like crazy, trying to get to the middle of the Yarra River. And I think he realized really quickly he wasn't going to make it. Oh, no. And so what was something that was real funny to us suddenly turned into a bit of a life and death situation, because as he realized he couldn't save his drone, he started going underneath the water and he started struggling to come up for air. And next minute I'm running across the bridge, doing the full Baywatch, going down, taking my top off and diving in, dude, like to save this guy. When I jumped into the water, he was a good like 5 to 10 meters away from the side of the edge, but he was underwater, like, and he'd been there for at least 30 seconds to maybe a minute and hadn't come back up. So, and that was probably his third time going under and then coming back up and going under and coming back up. And by that time, I kind of realized, I think this guy's actually in trouble. So my wife and I, we both went down there and I jumped in, pulled him up, put him on his back and pulled him in to the side of the river. And then had to go home, have a shower and then get to work. There was no accolades, no awards, no nothing on that day. It was just like straight into work straight after that. So it was pretty surreal. I'm going to insert a photo of you as part of the cast of the Baywatch Australia. Just put my face on.
The one thing I like about you, because you're so selfless, and I heard that you got that bravery word, obviously because of what you've done and what you did, but also apparently nobody does that. Like, just jumps into the river to save people.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. The sergeant who was on duty on that day, who took my details about saving this guy, literally said to me in a phone call later on that no one does that stuff. No one goes in and helps anyone. Usually if people are screaming in the water, they kind of just leave them there.
What?
And they find obviously a lot of people that have drowned in the river. A lot of people try and swim across it when they're drunk and they don't realize how deep it is or how far the distance is between the sides. And no one goes in to try and save them when that happens. And so he was quite surprised that I didn't even know the guy, and then I jumped in to try and save him, and that I still wanted to go to work afterwards. It was like, dude, I can't stay around. I've got stuff to do. We got to go to work.
Also, speaking of your generosity and your selflessness, we have some giveaways from Kebrasca coming up, which we are so appreciative of, and we will let you guys know more about it later on in the show. Before we delve into the branding tips, my friend, I want to ask you about how you've built your company in Melbourne from scratch, as I know that, it'll inspire a lot of viewers today. We have a lot of dancerpreneurs watching that would love to get some insight on startups. Just taking you back from when you started, I know, having lived in New Zealand myself, some of us think of Australia as the next big Apple, So was it scary to move and start a business? And what were the initial hurdles you had to get through to start your company?
It was terrifying. The whole journey, and actually it's still terrifying today. The journey of us leaving was because we had been in New Zealand for so long. My wife at that time, who was my partner, had just come back from London, and we'd both come from a stint in Europe. And it didn't pan out. She kind of went at the time when it was the global financial crisis. So obviously any jobs over there just didn't work out. So we both kind of came back and reevaluated where we wanted to be and what we wanted to do. And we'd kind of done everything you could possibly do in New Zealand. We wanted a bigger challenge. We wanted a different kind of landscape. We wanted to explore and still travel. And we wanted to do something of our own. And so we decided that we wanted to go to Australia, but what we didn't want to do is go to Sydney, Brisbane, or Perth. We wanted to go somewhere else. I'd never been to Melbourne. Like I'd never set foot here at all. Hadn't been here on holidays, never been once. My wife had been here once when she was a teenager, and she thought, like, let's go check out Melbourne. Let's go see what it's about. So I'd never, ever been, dude. And I literally just went, cool, I'll go if you go. Let's go and see what happens. And we kind of packed up everything, sold everything off. We had no more than maybe, I don't know, like $5,000, which literally was gone in like the first couple of weeks before we had our first jobs and started setting stuff up. But we came with nothing, like absolutely nothing. No business, no clients, no contacts, no jobs, nothing. Like we had nothing. So if you want a startup, like we're probably less than a startup, because at least startups have investment capital, like they have some money behind. We didn't have any savings either. We had nothing, literally $5,000. So we jumped on the plane. We came. Thankfully, we had some really good friends who were staying in Victoria in Northcote, Clinton and Marissa, who put up with us. over the time until we actually found a job. And then, I fell into the job of telecommunications because that was my background back in New Zealand. And my wife ended up getting a job at Channel 7 just as a scheduler. And these were like jobs that obviously weren't our ultimate thing, but they allowed us to pay our own way here, get our own place, set ourselves up, and gradually, step by step, make some moves. So the first part was getting over here and getting a job so that we could actually have a place of our own. That was step one. Step two was, once we had our own place and we had our jobs, so we had a security level that was good for us. We started looking at the landscape of our specialities, which for her is she was creative at MyFM. She created all these ideas and campaigns and advertising copy, and the marketing team there were absolutely incredible. And I had a massive sales background. So we started looking at agencies, we started looking at businesses, we started looking at what we wanted to do over here. And having our own company or having our own agency wasn't really something we set out to do in the beginning. Oh. What we wanted to do was really give ourselves some type of job where we didn't have to work in something we hated. That's where it came from. And so we spent a lot of years trying to find what that thing was. And our business was formed out of music and our love for music. And from MyFM, that passion of music was able to grow into a massive radio station, which helped heaps of people. And we were hoping to make something similar here in Australia, because we saw from the landscape that there wasn't a MyFM here. There wasn't a community and culture based around music here. There wasn't any kind of events that you could go to where there was a polyfest and there was like this amazing vibe of both culture and dance and all working together. It didn't exist. And so our fundamental was to try and bring some of that New Zealand flavor into a new market and see if it'll work, see if the ideas will resonate, see if the communities exist, see if the brands would want to pay sponsorships for it. And that was our idea. Obviously, we had no clients, we had no business, we didn't have anything. So having a great idea is always amazing, but without actually putting action into it, nothing's going to happen. And so Amber and I spent, a lot of time looking at what was happening at the time that we could offer our services to, and hopefully try and build up some type of network. And one massive opportunity helped us make that happen. A friend of ours who actually had run festivals for a long time and brought artists from the US into Australia and New Zealand, just so happened to be running the biggest music festivals in Australia. Like, he was bringing people like 50 Cent, T-Pain, and he was Cisco, Kerry Hilson, like everyone you could possibly name, Snoop Dogg. He was bringing them over 3 times a year and doing a national tour in Australia and doing what was called Rock the Block at that time in New Zealand. And so this guy didn't have any marketing team on board. He was literally paying all these artists to come on. He was running these massive festivals, and he had no one doing corporate sponsorship partnerships or marketing in that kind of area. And so he was a client of mine back from MyFM. Just so happened he lived here in Melbourne. So we caught up for a coffee at I still remember the first meeting was at TGI Fridays in Chapel Street. It was like his hangout. So we used to go there on Friday, have TGI Friday, and then discuss like what would kind of happen. And, we hit him up and said, look, man, have you got anyone doing any corporate partnerships, any sponsorships for your events? You're doing some of the biggest artists in the world, but you don't have any sponsors. Like, what's the deal? And he was like, I've got nobody. Do you guys want to do it? And I was like, yeah. We weren't getting paid either. It was like full commission only, no money, and we were still working full time. So then, because of that opportunity, Amber and I switched into like, we're working our normal job mode, and we're going to do this festival R&B event music side outside of that and do the two at the same time. And that became like the next 2 years of our life, was working this duality of roles, business during 9 to 5 and then outside of business. So our days at that point was like 18 to 20 hours of working daily. Like, it was crazy. It was absolute craziness. But we did it because we wanted to try and see how far we could take the music side. We wanted to see what we could do with brands in Australia. And we just so happened to land on like the perfect platform. To us, his festivals and events were very similar to like a Polyfest, you know, back home, because you had all Polynesian people coming, you had all Australians coming, and you had the biggest artists in the world. So for us, it was like, this is the equivalent of a MyFM massive concert, and we've got access to it. So we're going to max this out like as much as possible. And so our first client that we brought on board for him, and this was in like the first 4 weeks of working with him, was Beats by Dre and Jeep Australia. And neither one of them had heard of his festival, knew about it, or even knew it existed. And they were our first clients. And that's how we began. That's how we began.
It's really good to, you know, to kind of just understand, you know, spotting an opportunity and making the most out of it. Because I think people don't even spot things to begin, you know, and also knowing how to like deal with that first gig, you know. I mean, you guys had to just kind of agree to not get paid, but getting paid commission and build from that, rather than being too selfish about like what value you have or being too arrogant about it. Even if you knew you can give value, but you understood that you could start somewhere, and then you built like that.
100%. Like we were lucky because we had our jobs as a background. Money wasn't the option back then. What we needed was contacts, clients, and brands that we could start building a portfolio, you know, and start creating content. Because if we were going to go into the agency side, we needed to show people what we could do. And so for us, the give and get was we'd give our time and our passion, our knowledge, our experience. But what we would get back is a massive nationwide festival, some of the biggest artists in the world that we could work with, and some of the biggest brands that we could work with as a portfolio for our first King Creative, whatever. Yeah. And that was the big get for us. It was a long-term vision that wasn't based on money. It was based on where we wanted to progress, where we wanted to go to. And we both like worked our asses off to try and make that happen. And thankfully it turned out in the long run. So we're very grateful, my friend.
Okay, so I'm excited to talk about branding and marketing because this is actually one of my main interests in life. I do content creation and social media management for some creative brands. And before I got into it, I thought, you know, just posting on social media is enough. But quickly realized that it's a much deeper process than that. You know, and I had to actually experience some pain before I finally understood some important marketing fundamentals. So let's begin with how to start. Like if you want to start as a dance brand, what would be the first things you need to put in place or think about?
I think people have a real misguided understanding of what branding is. For me and how we do things, branding is 3 parts. There is your company brand, your personal brand, and your product brand. And the problem is people think all these 3 things are one, but they're not. You need to treat these 3 things as individual entities, and you need to make content that celebrates each one of these entities, and each one of them will have a different voice, different content, and different connections to the wider audience. So for instance, you know, what's a personal brand? If you think of Virgin Australia, who's unfortunately not doing too well at the moment, but looks like they're going to be bought, which is great. If you look at Virgin Australia, the personal brand of that is Richard Branson, right? If you look at Tesla, the personal brand of that is Elon Musk. If you are a dancer and you're building a dance business, you, as the owner of that business, are the personal brand of that company. And so you need to be thinking about yourself like Richard Branson, like Elon Musk, and putting yourself out there like they do, talking at events, doing a podcast like what you're doing, creating content that's adding value, and doing all this great stuff that builds your personal brand, which is completely separate to your company and completely separate to a product offering that you're going to try and sell, right? So that's first and foremost. 3 different brands, each one separate, and you have to do content and support each one with a different voice. So that's personal brand. Your company brand is your company. So that's everything you do as a business. So if you're a business and you're actively supporting the youth around initiatives for dance, and if you're actively creating new networks or new opportunities in the community, or if you're, raising money for a charity, all that kind of great company stuff fits in that world. And that goes out into the public around what the business is doing and how the business is supporting the community and how the business is helping the youth and how the business is doing all these positive things to help grow the business brand. Does that make sense? So then you start having yourself as the Richard Branson, building that brand, the company doing great work in the community, building the company brand, and then you'll start driving people into your network because you're doing such great stuff at these two levels. Once you have those two, it gets to the third part, which is your product brand. And that is the stuff you sell. And I think the problem, not just in the dance community, but across the board, is everyone thinks that the what you sell comes before the personal brand and before the company brand. Yeah. And the biggest issue is that that's not true. You need all three in order to sell something. People don't just buy stuff because they see it on the internet and they're like, oh, it's $20, I'm going to buy it. They don't do that. People's behaviors is around, are you solving a problem and are you offering value? And when you talk about a product brand, that product has to answer those questions. So if you're a dancer in the community, what kind of problems do you see dancers going through at the moment? One of the biggest will be you can't actually come together anymore and practice. So is there a way you can monetize that and turn it into a product offering where you can do that, but do it virtually? Yes. Could you then start talking about those problems from a product point of view and help people come on board and build a community out of that? Absolutely. So there are different ways that you need to talk about your brand, and it's not just one brand, one way, one message. It's three different brands. And whenever we work with companies, whenever we do it ourselves, we break up the content and the things that we do into those three areas all the time, because that allows you to talk about different things that you love in different ways. For instance, I'm really big on giving my time and energy to people who are now small business owners who are going out of business, or they're during COVID and they're wondering what to do. So that's great for me as a personal side of things, but for the company, it doesn't make any money. So for me, I do it from a personal brand point of view, and it goes out on my personal content, but it won't go in King Creative content. It won't be a product we sell. It's purely mine. But then if we do something great with, say, Lenovo, or if we do a great campaign for JBL, that will go out on the company brand and be celebrated on our website and be pushed out on social. And, we'll be talking about that within the company side of things. And then when COVID ends, or when we look at creating new products to help people with COVID, like a webinar series or podcast, and we're going to start selling something to help people, then we turn that into a product side of things and we monetize it. And that's how we do branding. We don't do it as one message and it goes across all three and it all kind of comes together as one. We treat it all individually as three different things. And that's probably the biggest issue I see, is people all thinking that they can just do one post and that covers the company, the product, and the personal, which it does. Like, let's be honest, it does, but it doesn't have the same effect.
Yes.
And what you'll find is there are things that you give that are really true to yourself, that you love, that don't fit into the company. There's things that the company do that won't fit into your personal. And then there's products that you'll want to sell that you may not even like, but you need to sell it just because of money. And so you have to separate it so that you can utilize it in the best way possible. And, wow. And that's what we do.
So do you have like a set of values in each one?
Absolutely. The values is probably the most important part, because without value in anything, and our business is hugely structured upon value and giving value, really differently to other marketing agencies here in Australia. We pride ourselves on doing quite a lot of things, but one of the biggest is, in Australia, marketing agencies want to charge by the hour. We don't charge by the hour. We charge by result. If you want to get this amount of return, if you want to make this amount of sales, if you want to tick this box, that's your problem. Here's what it costs. And then we work until that is solved. Whereas other agencies, other firms, they charge you by every little thing that they do. But that's part of our company core value.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of my personal value as well. It's always going above and beyond, always doing as much as you can. And then our product values are similar. We offer more than what people would normally get for their money. Like, we go well above the industry standard. We put extras in where people won't. We give away free gifts. We give away advice. And those types of core values, if you have them across the board, really help you to build and sustain really good customers, clients, and relationships.
Okay, let's talk about tracking the effectivity of your branding. So, and a lot of brand owners that are listening right now, whether they may be an owner of a studio or a product or running an individual brand, they've been running their business for a while now, and they can get so covered with, work, running classes, teaching, and so forth. I can see a lot of them do not track the effectivity of their branding. Like, how do you track brand effectivity, and how often do you sit down and reflect about it?
So we do it in 3 phases. Depending on how you're putting out the branding, there's different measurement tools for each component. So for instance, if you're doing brand posts on social media, depending on the platform, you'll have analytics that you can analyze on those particular posts, right? And everyone's used to seeing that kind of stuff and that kind of data. What you want to see, though, is high engagement and high or increased follows. You don't want to see low engagement on your posts. You don't want to see people unfollowing your channels and your pages, because if they are, it means that your stuff is not relevant. No one's connecting. No one cares, right? So you want to use social as a tool to amplify your content and reach out to other people. So looking at analytics across social media is an easy win. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It's real easy. The thing that social has changed is you have to pay to play now. You can't do anything for free, apart from TikTok, which is a whole nother thing we'll talk about. But you have to spend money on that if you want to get the engagement, if you want to get the reach. You can't rely on just putting a post out and relying on organic traffic anymore. You need to actually spend money. It's the only way you're going to start building new followers, start building new fans, and start growing your engagement. So a lot of people are still stuck on the fact that we've got a great Facebook page or a great Instagram page, and we're putting great content out there, but it's still not growing. And it's not growing because you're not spending money. And that's just what social is all about. It's literally a pay-to-play format. So that's social. For anything that goes in the public eye, like PR, press releases, media, or stories, our company, when we land a new client, we usually do a press run, and we push that out to the masses within the industry we work in to get coverage, media coverage, interviews or stories with myself or Amber, articles about what we're doing, what the campaigns are, etc. We have a platform which actually tells us how much of a reach that article, that story, or that website gave us. So we have a tangible number on if this article goes out on Umbrella, we got 250,000 reach just from that one article. And we got 4 inquiries that came back from that particular article as well. So we use a platform which is called Coverage Book to measure that kind of metric. If you run like an event, or if you run like an introduction class where it's free and you want people to come along, that's a real easy measurement tool. One is, registrations. One is how many people actually turn up. the amount of people who not only did the free class, but actually want to sign up later on. And out of those, how many people also subscribed to your services, to your information, to your content. All of those measurements in an event space become your metrics of success or failure. And then you have your product offerings. If you have your product offerings and you're trying to market a new product or sell a new product, the benchmark for that is how long has it been in the market for? How many people have taken it up? What's been the responses of people that have actually gone through it and used it? And are they repeat customers, or do they drop off after doing it once? In your space, you might have a lot of products that allow people to just stay and do classes like one at a time, like a gym membership, right? You go, you pay for it, subscription model. You do as many as you like, but if you get bored of it, you can kind of cut it off.
Yeah.
And a lot of businesses have that kind of service. The problem with that service is not only is it really hard to forecast how successful you're going to be in the future, it's really hard to financially back yourself as well and take those results, because you won't have a tangible number that's going to be around for a long period of time. You're going to go up and down depending on how many intakes you have that month, or whether it's warm outside or whether it's cold, or all these other things will start impacting on that side of things. And so it becomes really tough to try and grow with that kind of subscription model. And we have a completely different way of selling our company to other people. We go for long-term business. We don't do short-term business at all. And so the measurement around having your product is it going to help you grow? Is it going to help you expand into new markets? Is it going to help you build the facilities you need? And does it actually tick the boxes for your dancers and for your business? And is it helping you actually become, the company that you actually want to be?
Yeah.
And those are the measurements across the board. If you put all those things together, we analyze that stuff on a monthly basis, and on a quarterly basis, on a 6-monthly basis, and an annual basis. And I work with my sales teams, marketing team, accountant, who I never wanted an accountant when I first started my business. But I tell you what, he's saved me so much money, but also gives me the insight and the confidence to go, okay, we now have enough funds where we can actually expand into Asia. We now have enough funds to get on a new account manager. We can do all the things you want to do because financially we're in a position to do that. And so all these people, all this data, all this analytics is what I use in order to grow the business. And without it, I don't know, it would be too hard, way too hard to grow it. It just wouldn't work.
Like there's a lot of, I think a lot of potential in the dance world, because I really think it's growing, even like promotion on TikTok, just the fact that people are dancing on there is free promotion for the entire industry, And
correct.
Why when, a lot of the people in the dance world are like, oh, I don't like TikTok. I'm like, dude, that's free promotion for us, I think there's a lot of potential, and I think our industry, the dance world, if we understand how to, take advantage of those tools and understand how to track things, I think we can really maximize all the things that's happening right now in the social media world. So I know you've worked with lots of dance groups and dance entities. What can you spot that we in the industry can do more of to get better at branding and marketing?
I have loved working with so many dance crews from New Zealand and now in Australia because they give an element in a live event or in a live spectacle that you just can't get in anything else. It's not something you can put onto a screen. It's not something that's going to be like one-dimensional and there's no connection. With dance, it has a connection. And because they're human beings doing this dance, it's a personal connection that you can't find in anyone else. Unless it's someone performing, as in singing or playing an instrument or doing something like that. Dance for me is the same connection. And being an artist myself, I know that in order to get good dancers and have that connection and be amazing, you need the right dance fit in order to bring that idea to life and to take it to another level. When we worked together, Joel, and we did that Maya Soul Republic and we did that big launch in Gold Coast.
Yeah.
It was a fashion show idea, right? It was just a fashion show where they have headphones walking down the catwalk. It had screens, they had lighting, all of that was great.
Yep.
The thing that everyone remembers though is your guys' dance and the fact that you pulled the headphone apart on stage in front of them. You put it back together on stage. You had this whole routine that was going on. And that thing, we could never possibly imagine what that would have looked like. Like myself and Amber, we had this crazy idea. Let's incorporate it in there and see what you guys could come up with. But what you had was so mind-blowing. It took our event from just being a fashion show into being something else. And not just being a different event, into being something memorable.
Yep. That
people keep coming back. And I'm seeing these guys 4 or 5 years down the track going, dude, remember that fashion show you did with those guys on stage? And that's the connection, right? And that connection isn't being sold enough in your industry. The power of dance is way more powerful than social media. Way more powerful. Social media to me is like an amplification tool. It's like put your stuff on there to get mass reach, mass audience. But you can't do that if you don't have a talent and you're not creative and you can't make something that you can put on there. And dance is one of those things, man. It's one of those beautiful things that we've been really fortunate to work with so many people. And I think in your industry, people need to really back themselves, and what they're doing and what they're creating isn't something that everyone can do. It's a very unique skill that takes years to develop. And I don't think that there's enough confidence in the industry to actually have people go, yes, this is what we do. And all you have to do is look at Paris and what she's done within that space and how she's lifted herself from where she was with her family to where they are now. Like, that is just the pinnacle of success for me, and how she's done that is incredible. And she deserves to be there. She's done so much work to lift not only her, but her entire company, the family, everything. The dancers are now doing fantastic things all over the world with some of the biggest artists in the world. Like, that is the dream.
Yeah.
But if she didn't back herself from day one, none of that would have happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you guys in that industry need to do is back yourself like Paris, back yourselves on your experience, back yourselves on your creative talent and your ability, and actually try and find brands and companies and support networks that can help you do what you really want to do, because they're out there and they're looking for stuff.
So true. And also the fact that you said about like understanding the power of our art as a communication tool to connect to people, rather than just like so focused on the art itself. One of the definitions of art is like a way of inspiring other people. So it's a communicative kind of tool. And I think if we understand that better, we can connect to more people and more people can relate to us. And so we can build more of a fan base, and the industry as a whole can become bigger as well. Okay, so let's dive right into social media. Such a big thing. So there's so much information about how to do effective social media online. So I just want to get some key points here. For the dance industry, knowing that we are in industry that is, capable of entertaining, educating, and as we said earlier, to connect. What can you suggest are like, say, 3 essential practices that is a must-do in the way we think about or execute on social media?
Real straight. The first one is don't use every platform. Only use the platforms that resonate to what you do, but also only use the platforms that can actually allow you to show your creative dance ability in its true form. Some platforms, you only get like 5 to 10 seconds, 15 seconds max. You want something that can actually show a full dance routine, and also be able to link back to your website or your product. So only use the platforms that allow you to showcase what it is you do, and allow you to build a community on that. And right now, Facebook is still number 1. It's huge, it's massive. Instagram and TikTok, YouTube. And a new one that hardly anyone is talking about, but you guys should absolutely get on, is Twitch. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with that kind of platform. It's a gaming platform. It's where all the gamers go and watch people do gaming, but now it's evolving into YouTube. It is evolving into a different platform where you can create content, put it on there, stream it live to the world, and at the same time build a network and run it for as long as you want. On Instagram and Facebook, I think you can only do a live for like an hour and then it gets cut off straight away. On Twitch, you could stream for 9, 10, 20 hours if you want. It's totally up to you, completely free. And you can actually use a tool like that to get a new audience to watch. And that audience is hungry for content. So look at the platforms that are out there right now. Look at what you want to do as a business and look at what you want to put out into the public forum to help you with your product brand, your company brand, and your personal brand. And when you start looking at the social and whether it fits into your values and whether it allows you to communicate the things you want, you'll start crossing off the ones that don't fit. And I would say that the biggest tip is to work with the ones that are going to work with you and support you and help you build and grow. So that's number 1. Number 2 would be have your content in advance. Like, don't just wait for the week to do content. Don't just wait for the day to go, oh, I'll wake up this morning. What am I going to post today? like map it out. For all our clients, we do 3 months in advance of content.
Wow, 3 months.
And that's a lot of content, dude. Like, and we are always 3 months ahead on all platforms. So if a client has...
How much do you prepare for that? How long does it take to prepare for the 3 months?
At least a month.
Okay.
Because you're talking written content, images, GIFs, video content, like across multiple channels. And each channel has different content. So, you know, there's a lot. But we try and prepare as much as possible to have a content schedule and a plan that's well in advance. And if things change, which they often do, you know, we didn't plan for COVID to hit with a lot of our clients, but when it did hit, we were able to change the content really quickly because it was in advance, and adapt depending on what's happening in the market. So having a proper content schedule that is not just for now, but well into the future allows you to really look at what's working as well and where it needs to be and what's working the best and what's giving you the best results. Without a proper content schedule, you can't reevaluate what is working and what isn't working. If you're not mapping out your content and keeping a record of it, and then looking at how many likes or how many engagements you've had, you have no idea what's happening with it. Like, you have none. So you're wasting your time. If you're not going to put the effort into doing it properly and have content and then put it into a schedule and then optimize it with your analytics and look at what's working, what's not, don't even bother. Just don't bother, because you're just wasting your time. And you're just gonna, like, that time would probably be better used at like building the business or focusing on something else that needs more attention. So that would be number 2. The last one would probably be around spending money. Everyone hates spending money on social because they think it should be just something that's free, but there's been a lot of changes that's happened in the last 10 years. Like, remember, Facebook's been around for 10 years. It's now a platform for adults. It's not a platform for the younger generation. It's the platform for us, dude. Like, it's like, you know, it's not the cool platform anymore. It's not that. It's the ones where mom and dads hang out and the police hang out and, you know, we have these cool conversations.
The prime minister.
The prime minister's on it. Like, when that happens, you kind of know, like, maybe this isn't cool anymore. But you know, what's happened with Facebook and Instagram and all these platforms is they changed the algorithms and monetized it a long time ago. But what it's taken the public perception to do is realize, in order for you to get engagement, you have to spend money. And everyone thinks that it's a waste of money if you do it. Well, I'm here to say, like, you're not going to grow on social if you don't. So again, you need to reevaluate, like, is social the platform? If it is, what we're going to do, what content are you going to push out and how often are you going to do it? And what's the schedule behind that? And then 3, what's the budget you're going to spend? And then how are you going to analyze that budget and how are you going to make it work for you? And it doesn't have to be a massive budget. The great thing about social is you can start with $10, $20. But you will see the difference if you put $10 into something as opposed to if you just leave it there and just like hope someone looks at something. There's a massive difference. Like, and it doesn't have to be a big amount of money. It just has to be a consistent spend, because what happens with Facebook is they start optimizing your content so that you get more of those people in. Without you spending money, they won't send people your way. That's how it works. And without you spending money, you're not going to grow your engagement. You're not going to grow followers. It just doesn't happen. They switched it a long time ago. And if you're not spending money on your content and if you're not playing it out properly, there really is no point doing social. So those would be the 3 biggest, man.
Yeah.
The 3 biggest ones.
How do you keep up with all the algorithms, bro?
I don't, dude.
Okay.
I don't keep up because it changes too often. Like, if it wasn't for my team constantly keeping on to stuff, like, I watch the marketing trends and I watch the global trends. If it's a social platform trend, my account managers would come back and be like, hey, this is changing. We need to address this and look at what we're going to do. But they happen so often that it's really hard to keep up with sometimes. But we do it on a weekly basis.
Oh, wow.
To talk about it as a team to see what's happening in the platform. We have to, because we have to tell our clients what's coming up as well. So we have to keep on.
I know there's some YouTube channels that talk about algorithms all the time. Are those, like, you know, credible?
Yeah, there are probably the biggest one that you guys can absolutely check out is Social Media Examiner. They are probably the world's leader in social media on all platforms. It is a US-based website, so it's not a lot of local content for Australia and New Zealand, but if there's anything happening there, it'll happen there first before it even comes out on the platform. The other side is there is like a business side of every platform. So for Facebook, for example, there's actually a marketing Facebook platform called Blue Book, which you can go onto, and there they release all the information, not just about what they're up to, but also what client success stories they've had. It's all marketing related. Any algorithm changes get done for Facebook on there, and now they've integrated Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram into that whole thing as well. So there's a lot. There's a lot of opportunities on there, and that's why it's really hard to monitor, because these guys can change it whenever they want. It doesn't stay the same forever. Unfortunately, they will change it usually on a monthly basis, if not every 3 months.
And what is the future of social melia, you think?
Man, probably microchips in our brains at some stage.
I'll be hiding in the cave if that happens.
It was funny, like 5 years ago when I first looked at Facebook, 10 years ago when Facebook first started, it wasn't anything that was in everyone's mobile devices, or it was just on computer. And, we've had meetings with the Facebook team, and what they're really driving for is the future of technology immersed into your life 24/7, and being immersed into VR. Virtual reality is massive for them. They're putting a huge amount of money into that. And they bought Oculus, which is a huge technology company that make those glasses that you put on. So Facebook owns them now, and it's producing content for VR. They're also hugely integrating into AI, which is, services that can interact with you without you even thinking about it, based on stuff you've searched, based on your digital history, based on any data they can pull from your cell phone or your emails or anything that you give them access to. And what will happen in the future with social is you will get an email or a message, or it may even be a virtual assistant that'll be like, hey, good morning, Joel. Here are the 3 offers for you around Nike and Adidas and Puma. Here's some really good venues that you can hold your next event at. And, here's your emails for the day. And they're going to categorize social to be personal. It'll be your own personal experience made for you that you can do on an ongoing basis. So I see that as being a massive, massive focus for them, not just them, but all platforms. And the other side is live is going to become normal. Live streaming, man, I remember when I was working with Vodafone back in New Zealand and we launched video calling. Nobody did it because no one wanted to put their face in front of it. Now it's nothing. Like video calling is what I see people walking down the street almost getting run over by cars because they're video calling, people in other sides of the world. But video calling wasn't big 10 years ago. And neither was live streaming. Live streaming is still very brand new. It's still in its infancy. It's only 5 years old. But I believe personal channels are going to be huge content pieces. And I see the switch between brands who have always owned that personal space. They've always owned the voices of what they want consumers to have. But I see the power actually switching to personal, and the people becoming more powerful than the brand, and the brand having to work with more individuals who have big followings. And it's already started. There are massive influencers now who have channels that are bigger than brands, and the brand has to actually work with these people in order to get in front. And so I see this massive shift happening with influencers and content creators that across the world that are becoming like their own Coca-Cola. Like they are becoming McDonald's. They are becoming just as big, if not bigger, than these brands. I mean, if you get 20 million people on YouTube, you are bigger than like Australia, like you're bigger than us. It's what's possible these days. So if you add those 3 things together, I really see that the power is going to come back to us. The power is going to be on the individuals, which will mean things like knowing what your personal brand is saying, knowing what your company brand is saying, and knowing what your product brand is saying is all going to be relevant. It's all going to add to your digital footprint, and it's going to allow you to own your little piece of the market. And I think if you have an approach on how you want your business to be in the future, it should be digital, it should be interactive and entertainment based, and it should be value based. If you have those three areas within any business, you're going to be good. If you're relying on other things outside of that, I think you're going to struggle. And COVID is a perfect example of that. When that hit, nobody was ready for it, and entire industries collapsed. The casino industry collapsed, the flight industry collapsed, hospitality industry collapsed. Like all these, main stable things all weren't prepared for it. And I think we have to be going forward. We can't let it happen again. And so having that as a basis on anything you do going forward will definitely help you.
Wow. Just a couple of things there. I was just watching The Matrix last week after having seen it for 10 years or so. And I'm like, wow, my understanding of it has just changed from when I watched it from when I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, I just saw it as like this sci-fi, martial art kind of movie. But when I watched it last week, I was like, whoa, this is like about the world that they predicted back, when they made that movie. And now it's becoming true.
Now it's true. It's pretty scary what they had in that movie. I think it's more relevant now than ever.
So I know many dancers here would like to know how to work their way into becoming an influencer. If someone wants to grow to be a social media influencer, what do they need to do? And also, like, what stats or engagements are you looking at to qualify yourself as an influencer? And how do you get there and how do you start?
So for influencers, I would say a few things. We normally look at influencers for our brands and for the companies we represent for a number of different products, from technology to fitness to sports and social and a whole bunch of other things. The one thing that every single brand is looking for is engagement, and not just global engagement, local engagement. I think there's been, we're in almost the 10th year of influencers being around now. So they've been around for a long time, ever since social kind of first hit. And we've had that first massive wave of influencers, which is all about looking amazing, being beautiful, having high amount of followers, and crazy, high numbers of all this kind of stuff. That was kind of the first wave of influencers, and brands jumped on board because it was brand new and it was creating great value. Now it's the second wave of influencer, which is becoming a lot more focused and targeted. It's becoming a lot more like, okay, if we have this dancer in New Zealand and they have 100,000 people, how many of that audience is actually in New Zealand? Because as a brand, if I'm in New Zealand, I only care about that audience that's in New Zealand, and I only want to pay for that brand exposure, nothing else. Yeah. So things are changing. Whereas before, brands used to pay for the entire audience, brands are now only paying for whatever audience they've got within that market. So if you're an influencer, if you want to start out to be an influencer, start with your own backyard. Start with your own local content. Start with your own thing that's happening around you. The reason we say that we're Docklands #1 business is not because we're Australians #1. We're in Docklands. That's where we are. So we don't go out saying we're Australia's biggest marketing podcast. It's complete, BS. And so we focus on local. We focus on building ourselves up in our area, and we own that space. There's no one else that can come in saying Docklands #1 business podcast, because we've taken it. It's ours, and we are. And so we focus a lot on the local content to allow us to establish ourselves as a brand. So if you're an influencer, you can actually turn, if you're from Manurewa or if you're from, Tirarangi or anywhere, you can turn that place where you are into your hub. It's about you thinking about it differently. Instead of you being like, I'm stuck here and I can't do anything, where is the opportunity for content? Can you go down to the local, park and do a park series? Like every Wednesday, it's a park thing that you own, and you just do this thing on a Wednesday. Can you go to a skate park and do something down there? Can you go to a mall and do something in Westfield? owning something that is uniquely yours and local will help you build relevancy. And brands really want to work with people who have something about themselves going on that's local, that they can jump on board with, that their brand can't do. And so the more unique you are to yourself, the more authentic you are to yourself, the more chance you have of working with brands down the track. And also the fact is you'll also build a really good tribe of people that'll want to follow you because you're doing that local content. So having something local is key. And the second biggest thing would be consistency. Once you start posting, don't stop. Once you start making content and you have a Wednesday thing or a Thursday thing or a Monday thing, don't stop. Consistency is what works in digital. Once you start and stop, it's like starting a wave, and then when you stop, the wave ends. And then if you start in a month later, you're starting the wave again. And then if you stop, it stops again. And so what you want to do is just continually ride it, continually build it. But if you stop and you're not consistent, you don't ride the wave, you end it. And you have to catch another one, and you have to catch another one. And so consistency, man, is everything with influencers. And the reason why these kids and the reason why these content creators grow is because they are huge on making sure if they say they're going to stream on Wednesday at 5 p.m., they stream 5 p.m. Wednesday. If they say they're going to post out a competition every Tuesday, they post a competition every Tuesday. If they're going to release a piece of content every Thursday, they do it. And if they're not going to do it, or if they can't make it, they apologize to the community and tell them when they will come back and do it. You know, they don't just let it out there and not show up and nothing happens. They treat it properly. And so, you know, creating something local, keeping it consistent, and then making sure that you're there and present and giving it your all is probably the best kind of steps that we've seen do it. And it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
I would say it takes, on average, we work with influencers that have gone from 10,000 to 100,000, and then it's taken them 4 years to do something like that. And so, you know, if you're going to do this approach, know that you're going into it and it's not going to happen instantly. It's going to take time. Anything takes time. But becoming an influencer is something that you have to grind at. You have to continually work at it, and you have to be consistent, and you have to do that for at least 4 years, at least minimum, before you become something.
Yeah.
That would be my advice.
So you heard it here, guys. There's no shortcuts.
No shortcuts.
Yeah, but it's really interesting how the concept of space has kind of evolved through the, you know, from past to present. Like before, our concept of space was like land. How many lands can you like take or have? But now, you know, online space or like space of an industry, like the perception of owning a space, like you said, like Docklands. Like you don't necessarily own Docklands as a land, but you own it as the podcast. You know?
Yeah, correct. And I'm not even native to Australia, so how can I say I own any?
Don't even have to
but I'll take it.
You could pay for any rights to own this. You know? And interesting because you never know in the future you might need to pay for something like that. But you know, now that you don't have to, take it.
Take it, own it, make it yours. Yeah, 100%.
And so as we finish off here, I just want to just looking from the outside with a business eye, what do you wish dancers can see more of in the way they perceive the world as a whole?
I think from my point of view, there are a lot of opportunities. Even now, there's a lot of opportunities for dancers to put themselves out. There's a lot of opportunities for dancers to create new products. There's a lot of opportunities for dancers to create communities. It still exists. It's just changed in how you're going to do that. And so I think looking at what's happening with COVID and looking at what's been taken away, we also need to look at what's still here and what you can do to maximize what is still here. And then if you are able to uncover all those things, you might actually find that there's a lot more opportunity than you think. A lot of us right now, and I've spoken to so many business owners, a lot of us get caught up in the pandemic side, or we get caught up in the cases, we get caught up in the negative vibe of what's going on in the world. And none of that stuff is going to help you. If you're a business owner, if you're a dancer, if you're wanting to establish yourself, it's not going to help you one bit. All it's going to do is create fear or make you feel negative about what's happening in your world. So switch it off. Don't even pay attention to it. Start looking at what is actually out there. Start looking at what the opportunities are and start seeing how you can actually go towards those opportunities, make them something for yourself. Maybe it's working with other partners. Maybe it's working with other dancers and creating a collective hub, a network, and starting there and seeing what you guys can actually do together. And then at the same time, doing things like this, like a podcast where you're sharing information and expertise and insight. It's hugely valuable to the community. And that's probably something that when we first met, years ago, we never would have thought of doing. At that time, it would never be a content piece we would even discuss. We'd be talking about what's the next event and what's the next big thing that we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. But now it's shifted and changed. And so you have to understand that shift is here and it's going to stay for a while. And you need to be able to pivot, change, look at the opportunities, adapt, and really focus on what is still here and what's still relevant to you.
Wow, thank you so much for that wealth of golden nuggets, Kebrasca.
You're welcome, man.
So much of the dance industry gets so wrapped up with the art that they don't also get good advice with business and marketing with that side. So thank you for dropping all that. One last thing today from you. What's one thing you'd like to encourage everyone in the world to do more of?
Love each other, man. We're a beautiful species. The human race is one of the most incredible living entities I've seen on this planet in many, many different countries. But what I don't see enough of is, people really giving and loving each other on a regular basis. I see a lot of people taking advantage. I see a lot of people making great money. I see a lot of success in materialistic side of things, but I don't see people really genuinely loving one another, supporting one another, and being there through the worst times like now. And I think the only way we're going to survive, or the only way we're going to get through anything, is if we can set our egos aside, set our money aside, and realize we're all just the same, and realize that we all just need to spend more time accepting and being there and loving one another. Because without all the business side, without all of that, at the end of the day, all we have is us. Right? That's it. That's all we have.
Yeah, exactly.
So that would be my thing.
Especially nowadays with COVID, realizing that, all that can be taken away from you, but the energy that we have for each other, like love, can be something that we can, hold on to and keeps us alive and happy,
100%, man. 100%. I think a lot of people don't value love enough. I think they take it for maybe face granted, but our business was started on love. The love that Amber and I have for each other, the love we have for music and the industry, the love we have for creativity started from that. And what we've seen is there are people in the industries, in all industries, that love what they do, and there's ones that don't. And if you've found that thing that you love, share it, support it, and grow it. And if you're on the path to finding it, stick with the things that you love the most and stay within those things, because those things are true to yourself. And once you know what that feels like to actually build and grow that thing inside you and turn it into something that also supports you in the real world, it becomes a different connection. It becomes something that no matter what you reach, you will always be humble and you'll always be there for whoever needs you. So love is big for me, man. It's real big.
So awesome. And I know that, from everything that you've given us today in the last hour, if people want to connect with you more, or some of the services that your company King Creative offer, and I'm sure there's a lot more people can, benefit from what you do in this world, how can they connect with you?
The easiest way is I'm actually contactable all the time. You can send me an email. You can drop a line on our website. You can listen into our Creative Talk podcast as well on Spotify or Apple. You can come see me at any speaking events when they come back. Pretty soon, we're going to be launching a new webinar series about couples in business. My wife and I are going to add that to Creative Talk and try and help as many couples that, one, are married to each other, but also in business with each other. There's going to be a lot of content coming out around that. And yeah, at any time, reach out on social media. I have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, which I'm really active on. I don't say no to nobody. Like, if people want to talk to me, I'm always up for it. It's the only way knowledge gets shared.
Exactly. I don't know how you do everything that you do, Kebrasca. It's so good to see, and you feel so calm, feeling so young. You're looking like amazing. So thank you again. Thank you again for being here. So yes, make sure you connect with Kebrasca and his team. And as I mentioned earlier, he is giving away 5 copies of his books, 5 Steps to Creative Marketing. We have put details on how to enter that draw on the text attached to this video, and Kebrasca will personally sign them and post them to you. So thanks again, my man, and it's great to have you here.
Take care, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
So hope you all learned a lot from the conversation. And before we finish, here's your question of the day. What is the one thing that you struggle the most in marketing your dance business or you as a dance brand? So write that down in the comments below. And if you find a comment where you can share your own ideas, please feel free to do so. We would really like to build an online community here where we can share ideas and lift each other up. Okay guys, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to spread joy through your movement, and we will see you next time.